Good morning, students. Let us continue with the story The Gift of Magi by O. Henry. In the vestibule below was a letter box into which no letter would go. Writer says that in the lobby of that building there was a letter box. The letter box was in a very withered and poor condition. No letter, no page, no paper would go into this letter box, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. There was also an electric button, and whereas the condition of this button was concerned, writer says that even not a single person, human being, could push the button or ring the bell. Also appertaining thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. There was also a plate on which title a name was written. A nameplate was there, and the name engraved on the plate was Mr. James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. The condition of the particular letter Dillingham, it was very good when its possessor of the building was prosperous one and was able to earn 30 $30 a week. Now, when the income was shrunk to $20, the letter of Dillingham looked blurred. As the income of Dillingham Young decreased to $20, the very condition of this particular word, this particular letter, was also changed. As though they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming deed, it seemed as if the proper word, it was decreasing to a single letter D. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim and greatly hugged by Mr. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Dela. But whereas the relationship of these two candidates, this couple was concerned, as Mr. James Young returns home in the evening, he was called Jim with love and greatly embraced, greatly hugged by Dela, his wife, which is all very good. It shows that their relationship, it was good enough. Dela finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. Now, previously as she was sitting in chair and crying, now she finished her cry and cleaned her cheeks by using powder. She stood by the window and looked out dully at the grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey backyard. She approaches to the window in a very indifferent manner and witnesses a grey cat passing grey fence, grey boundary in the grey backyard. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. Still, the same thought is there, running there in the mind of Della, that tomorrow is going to be Christmas Day, and she was having $1.87 with which she was to purchase a gift for Jim. She had been saving every penny she could for months with this result. She had been saving every penny since months, and as a result of this saving, she could save only $1.87. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim, her Jim. Many a happy hours she had spent planning for something nice for him. She spent a long time, many happy hours, remembering him and planning for him to purchase something very nice for him. Something fine and rare and sterling. She decided that the gift should be fine, the gift should be a rare one, it should be substantial, it should have a real value. Something just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. Something should be of such kind that should be proper if Jim, her husband, uses that gift. There was a pier glass between the windows of the room. There was a narrow glass between the windows of the room. Perhaps you have seen a pier glass in an $8 flat. You can imagine, you might have seen what type of glass can be there in a flat where the rent is just $8 per week. A very thin and very agile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. Only a very thin, very very active person could see his or her image in that narrow mirror. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. Della, as she was a slim one, she was quite mastered in this art. She could see her reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Suddenly, she moved round from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. She was happy, her eyes were shining, the face was glowing, but the glow of the face, it vanished within 20 seconds. Rapidly, she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. In a speedy manner, she unrolled her hair and let them fall down full length. Now there were two possessions of James Dillingham Young's in which they both took a mighty pride. Writer says that whereas this family is concerned, this couple is concerned, they were having two possessions, two things of which they could feel pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather. Out of two possessions, one was a golden watch of Jim. Previously, it belonged to his father and grandfather. Other was Della's hair. Other possession of the family was beautiful hair of Della. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window some day to dry, just to depreciate her. Had the Queen of Sheba, Queen of South Africa, Had she lived there in the adjoining building of this couple, someday Della would have opened her hair just to dry them. And even that queen, even that queen would have envied after looking at such beautiful hair. Had King Solomon been the janitor, with all his treasure piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. Even suppose, had King Solomon, king of Hebrews, he lived there, having jewels, having money, having treasure, he would have envied when he looked at the beautiful golden watch of Jim. Mark it here. Thank you very much.